What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Gaetano. I'm here with Scott and Tito, and today we have a phenomenal webinar for you. This topic has been highly anticipated for the past couple of weeks. We've seen a lot of chatter, a lot of buzz about this on LinkedIn and in our community and various other platforms across the internet. And it's our pleasure and great honor today to have, I would call Tito the godfather of outbound sales, if you will. Uh, and if you haven't met Scott before, who runs our partnerships at Sales Hacker, he's going to be moderating with me. And today it's all about Tito, man. Tito is going to be featured today, and he's going to break down some myths. He's going to validate some truths, and we're going to get into the weeds with this. We're going to go real deep into cold calling, how it should be measured, the problems that we're seeing in the landscape, and I'm just really excited for this webinar. This is going to be, I think, one of our best webinars of all time. And if you're signed in right now, you're really in for a treat. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items before we dive in. Number one, we will be sending you a follow-up with the recording. So if you got to drop off at any point, not a big deal. You're going to get the full recording, so no need to feel like you're going to miss out. And also the deck is going to be posted on our SlideShare as well. So follow us on SlideShare and also subscribe to us on YouTube to stay updated. So without any further ado, let's get into the introductions.
I'm sorry,
All right,
I think I'm controlling the slides and I messed up there. I should have moved to the agenda when you were talking about it. I'm nervous, guys. It's my first time being on this webinar. So yeah, cool.
Yeah, man,
go ahead, Scott.
You're in the spotlight, man. But Scott, welcome, of course, and intro yourself to everyone.
What's going on, everyone? Scott Barker. So I head up partnerships and sales at Sales Hacker. Yeah, big proponent of outbound, business development. I used to lead a large business development team, made millions of cold calls myself. Really passionate about this topic. Excited to basically just be throwing jabs at Tito and breaking it down. But yeah, it's not about me. It's let's move on. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of this webinar. Let's go.
Awesome. Welcome. Yeah, quick little spiel about me. I was at Pipedrive before Sales Hacker, running SEO, lead generation, inbound marketing there. Previously to Pipedrive, I was working in an agency, and I was working on enterprise campaigns for technical SEO, lead generation, inbound marketing, and now that's what I do at Sales Hacker. So you guys have probably seen me make a noise on LinkedIn and so forth. But like I said, this isn't about me today. We're going to be featuring Tito. We want to give him all the shine. So Tito, welcome aboard, man. And why don't you introduce yourself to the audience if they don't know who you are yet?
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll keep it short. I'd rather talk about the content and how I can help you guys today and give you useful tips that you can take back to the office and implement. But quick background, for myself is I dropped out of college to start doing business development in 2011. And since then, I've built 17 teams. I've had at the peak 27 SDRs under my management. I've done SDR work myself. I've been a manager, 27 reps. I've done sales development operations, lead researcher, lead routing, managing all aspects of sales development. So, today I help companies. We do consulting and we do essentially an outsourcing model where we augment or amplify internal teams. And hopefully my expertise and my knowledge is helpful to you. And I'm a big passionate of developing the people that work around me. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Let's just get rolling.
Awesome, man. And for the audience that doesn't know this, Tito is one of our top contributors as well. So if you're interested in finding some content from Tito on Sales Hacker, you can go to our blog and you can find his stuff there. Really awesome stuff. But Tito, why don't you set the context, man? Set the stage here. Scott, I know you see this like crazy. You're talking to VPs of sales all day, VPs of marketing, CROs. Tito, you're in the same area. SDRs are being fed to the wolves, man. Let's just be honest. VPs of sales on this webinar, you already know what's happening. So Tito, break it down for us, man. What's going on? Why is this happening? And what should we do about it?
Yeah, so overall context around the webinar is we're gonna talk a little bit about the difference between email campaigns and phone campaigns and how can you improve those and some of the ideas behind it, some of the techniques and methods, and how you are able to do it. So the first thing to understand is let's start with email so that everybody's on the same page because email is something everybody does, right? Um, and one of the biggest problems is that when you are sending emails and you're not optimizing for meetings, a lot of bad habits arise. So I've gotten emails that the subject line starts with RE, right? And then I've replied back and said, I thought your RE subject line was deceiving. And they're like, no, it meant regarding, not response. And I'm like, still, it doesn't matter what you are trying to mean as long as it's misleading and I feel like you're trying to trick me, you're not starting the relationship right. Right? And some companies are going to follow very old methodology and thinking of, let's optimize for open rates or reply rates or leads and things like that. And I mean, there's quick hacks to both increase your open and reply rates, but that don't move the needle when it comes to actually getting more revenue, right? And the two examples that you can see on your screen is if I send you an email where the subject line is like dinner tonight, um, of course, opens through the roof because they're thinking that you might be somebody who's meeting for dinner, they forgot about a meeting or something like that. But as soon as they see that you're pitching them something, they might get annoyed, right? The other one to hack reply rates is start with your email by saying, hi, John, if you want me to stop emailing you, just tell me or just reply stop. And of course, your reply rates are going to go through the roof, but it's people opting out of your campaign, right? And you might be using some, sales engagement technology like outreach, for example, to do that. And then as soon as they reply, they're out of your campaign. So not the best way to optimize your campaigns. You should be optimizing for other metrics. What we like to optimize for is the percentage of emails converted to demos, right? If you send 1,000 emails, how many demos are you getting? But additionally, you should also start measuring things like positive and negative responses. And the reason for that is, if you are converting, if you're sending 1,000 emails and let's say you're converting 15 to demos, like, okay, great rate. But then you have another like 70 people who have marked you spam and who replied back with like, this is tricky and deceiving and I hate it and I would never do business with you. Then despite the fact that you might be getting some short-term revenue, you need to be really conscious about your reputation in the market and keep it clean. So
Yeah, that's huge, man. Scott, I want to get your take on this too. You're in this day in and day out. I know you see a lot of garbage, and I also know that you have some tips on subject lines that really work. But Scott, I want to get your take on this real quick before we get into the key takeaway here.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and I think we did a post on this LinkedIn similar last week, and it was about death to vanity metrics. So like vanity metrics need to go, like reply rates, all this stuff. It doesn't actually matter. It's about keeping it, what's important, what actually moves the needle. So I love Tito's point about the negative and positive responses. And you could book maybe 10 demos, but if you're cannibalizing your entire database to do so, that's not an effective campaign, right? So I just have to mirror everything Tito said. For me, a subject line, just a really actionable thing that has worked for amazing for me in the past is can you give me a hand? Is my best performing subject line. Super simple, and
Nice.
it's basically the call to action. That is just pointing me in the right direction and getting a referral. It's always done very well for me.
that's awesome.
Well done, man. Hey, Tito, we have a question. This is a good one. What soccer team do you support? This is the most from this person. It says this is the most important question of the day. What soccer team do you support? Just a
I
funny
am
one
a
right there.
big Real Madrid fan, and if I wasn't growing the company
Ooh.
right now as rapidly as I am, I would be on my way to Kiev for the Champions League final. It's been a dream.
Well,
Breaking
I can't say
breaking
that
my
I
heart.
support that team. I am a big Juventus fan, so I can't say that I support Real, but tip my hat to them. They're pretty talented. Yeah, so let's get into the key takeaway here. Tito, why don't you give us the takeaway, man?
Yeah, the main takeaway is not only do you need to like be very conscious about the emails that you're sending and what you're saying and not to cannibalize your database like you said, but also one of the biggest problems with email is that you can never know exactly what drove what behavior, right? Was it your subject line that annoyed them? Was it that the email was too long? Was it your signature? Was it your LinkedIn profile that they checked out? Was it something else, right? There's too many things that we don't have enough behavioral data to understand what the prospect looked at to really do what they or to really make the decision that they made. So gotta be very conscious about it, right?
Right.
And on to Scott's point about, or say you guys, I know, right, cannibalizing your database. Marketers think like that, and they're very smart about it. But I've seen way too many sales and sales development leaders that don't think about that. And they're sending tens of thousands of emails every month and just you're gonna get really good short-term results, but 3, 5, 6 months and you're gonna be dead. And that's a big problem. So that's why we're trying to optimize the per meeting demo or the per 100 emails you send. How many demos do you get?
Hmm.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah,
quickly,
the reputation is you know, you don't want to be known as the company that spams, and there are a lot of companies right now that have dug their own graves. Like as soon as you see from company X, you're like, oh, I know what this is. Goodbye, delete. So there you go.
Yeah,
yeah, totally,
yeah,
man. And to that point, I would always kind of visualize it to myself when I was doing email campaigns that it's you're building a long-term relationship, right? Think about it as if, you were in a room. Let's say you're like networking at a conference. If you go up to everyone and you're like, "Hey, can you do me a favor?" or "Can I have a meeting?" Maybe two of those people in the room of 100 will be like, "Yeah, sure." But the other 98 are going to think you're an idiot and never want to do business with you. And I think the same with emails, right? It's about warming them up and kind of building that relationship versus the short term gain.
yeah. I agree with that. Too many people are sending way too many emails, and I know this too because as a company that helps other companies get more meetings, right? We join them as partners and we run part of their sales development. I always am told, Tito, why would we pay that much if I can hire somebody else, some other company for a third or a fifth of the price, right? And well, like the reason is they're just doing marketing automation. They might be using, Outreach or Salesloft or some technology to do it, but they're essentially just doing email only campaigns and knowing a lot of customers. Yes, bringing you some meetings, but you wouldn't treat your customers that way. If you're running the team in house, you wouldn't do it that way. So we recommend against it, and that's why I mean this webinar is about optimizing the specific campaigns. Um, I know it says survey time. How do we run this, guys? Is there a way that we could throw the survey out there for everyone?
Yeah,
David,
so
I think we're
we have
doing
a poll open right now. You guys should see this on your screen. We want to do a poll across the entire webinar attendance today, and we want to know, how are you measuring the quality of your reps' cold calls? And if you're not doing it at all, then don't reply to this because we don't want to inflate the results. But we want to get a quick idea of how this is going down. So you see the four options there: length of conversation. Are you using a tool such as Gong or Chorus? Are you manually listening to calls, or are you just keeping it binary? Yes or no? Did the call convert to business closed or not? So we'll give you guys a couple of minutes there to go through and answer that poll, and we'll display the results in about 25 to 30 seconds.
Yeah, and a quick thing to say here, this is about the quality of the conversations. It is not about the success of the conversation. You can have a great conversation that doesn't turn into a convert, or you can have a bad conversation that does turn into a calendar invite sent, and then the person doesn't actually show up to the meeting. So it's about how do you measure the quality of your reps' cold calls, and how do you help your SDRs have better conversations with the prospects.
Right. Scott, any thoughts on this while we give the audience a little bit more time to vote?
Yeah, this is a hard one. So when I was in the position of leading a business development team, tools like Gong and Chorus and stuff didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So I was manually listening to a lot of calls and judging it that way. But I think now in this day and age, we're lucky that we have tools, conversation intelligence tools. So that would, if I was to do the same thing now, that would probably be mine. And hopefully I don't sway the
Nah,
poll here, but.
actually, I can see the results coming in. It's quite fascinating. But before I get to the results, Tito, have you had any success using conversations intelligence tools like Gong or Chorus, for example?
Yeah, and I'll cover that in a second because the cold calls that we do are so short that we end up not using conversation intelligence tools. We do record the calls as like when it's allowed according to zip codes and so on. But then we are going to use something different. I'm going to get into that in the next slide. So as soon as we close
Awesome.
the
That
poll.
sounds good. Yeah, we're going to close the poll in just a second. So by the way, guys, we do have tons and tons of questions coming in. We'll try to get through some of them periodically as the webinar goes on, but definitely stick around to the end. We're going to have a pretty open slot at the end of this webinar for Q&A. So if we don't get to you during the webinar, not to worry, we're going to get them all in at the end there. But yeah, let's go ahead and close this out. The results are pretty fascinating. So here's the winner. 70% of you said that you measure the quality of the calls by figuring out if business closed or not. That was the top result there. Scott and Tito, reactions to this?
Yeah, I think that's common, right? And I kind of gave a warning there. We're not asking about the success of the call. We're asking about the quality of the call. So I've seen things like SDR would call a prospect and say things like, oh, like the prospect's like, hey, can you just call me next week? I'm in the middle of something. And they're like, yeah, how about on Tuesday at 3 p.m.? I was like, yeah, that works. And then they send a calendar invite. And then they mark that as converted. So they're marking it positive. It's a really bad quality call marked as really positive because a calendar invite was sent. So not my favorite way to measure it. But I understand that that's a very common one that a lot of companies follow.
Right. And we do have a very relevant question to kind of add to this before we move on. And this is from Ilan Kopecki. Is there a way to do this in Salesforce? And if so, how do you do that?
Yes, sir. Here's next slide is going to answer that question perfectly for him. So the way you should measure the quality of your calls is by creating a funnel within your call. Now think about that for a second. When you're sending an email, the prospect can get distracted in a million different directions. They can skip a paragraph, they can go to the end, they can click on your signature, they can go on your LinkedIn profile, they can check out your company website, and then they decide what to do. When you're on the phone, they don't have the time to do any of that. The conversation gives you a lot of feedback about each little phrase that you say on the phone, and then you can improve that specific phrase. Now, there's no silver bullet when you're cold calling, and I'll get into this later during the webinar, but the way we structure it is like we have something, for example, we call it fly under the radar, which is when you call and you get to a receptionist, right? We're not talking executive assistants here, we're talking receptionists, slightly different, just because I'll give an example. Like somebody's like, hello, this is ABC Accounting, and this is whatever, John, right? What we would say is like, hey, John, this is Tito calling for Scott, right? And we might try that across a big team, right? I had 27 SDRs at one point. We could grab 5 SDRs, making 100 calls a day, getting 15 connects to accounting firms, try that approach. And then another group of people would say like, hi, this is John Smith. I am with Alti Sales, and I was hoping to speak with Scott, right? So slightly different approaches. And then we start measuring the data for how many times do we get through to the next step, which is actually getting the call transfer. And that's a mini success. The way we structure this today with our team is we're using outreach, and we use very custom dispositions for the call. So it tells us where the rep got stuck. And then we have our very unique metrics to understand at what point do they, like, at what stage of the call do they get stuck the most? How does that compare to other people in this campaign? How does this compare to the internal team? And therefore, what do we need to train on? And we're trying to push the conversations further down the funnel, right? Another, because this slide says a couple of examples, what is a hook, what's a pitch, what's a closing statement, right? So we have the flying under the radar, and then your hook is usually what you say at the beginning of the call, right? When somebody's like, hey, this is Scott, right? So you can answer that with a lot of different ways. And I'll give you an example. Like when we call VPs of sales, I might say something like, hi, John, this is Tito. I'm with Alti Sales. I was really hoping to speak with you for just 2 minutes. Is this an okay time? And a lot of people are going to debate me off if asking for time is good or not and if you should pitch it. But here's my view. A lot of times VPs of sales are going to say like, no, I'm super busy. And what we respond with is, come on, man, you're a sales guy. I'm a sales guy too. Give me 2 minutes. I promise I'll keep it brief. So if
I
you know
love
how
that.
to,
Yeah,
I love
that sucks.
that. That's awesome.
right? And the VPs of sales are going to love that, of course, because it's portraying the qualities of a great sales rep. And they're like, boom, he got me. I sent a rejection. He's not afraid of coming back. But it's almost pre-planned to ask it that way, right? Now, imagine I call a VP of engineering, and they're like, hi, this is Scott, right? If I'm like, hey, Scott, this is Tito. I'm with Alti Sales. Hoping to speak with you briefly. You have 2 minutes. It's a little bit too aggressive for an
Mhm.
engineer. And then even worse, if he's like, no, man, I'm busy. And I'm like, come on, you're an engineer. I'm a sales rep. Give me a chance. What?
Yeah,
He's gonna,
exactly. Like
Not going down.
as a marketer, I get cold called a lot, and when I get that pushy, hey, come on, you're a sales hacker, you know what sales is about. Like I'm like, yeah, but I'm in marketing, I'm busy. Like we react differently to different things. Whereas Scott might be like more open to that.
Yeah.
And like you said, Tito, an engineer is absolutely going to hate that. So you got to definitely know who you're cold calling and adjust your approach based on who you're dealing with. Scott, any gut reactions to this?
Yeah, like I'm a sucker for a good cold call for sure. I think anyone in sales who's paid their dues and come up that way is. Now this isn't free reign for everyone to cold call me right now. Like I get a lot of cold calls already, but yeah, I'm definitely a sucker for it. If someone comes well prepared and someone challenges me a little bit, like I absolutely love what Tito's response to that VP of sales. If someone used that on me, I'm probably booking a meeting or at least giving you 2 minutes.
Yeah, and
yeah,
hey,
cool.
Tito, what's your thoughts on this, man? Like, suppose you are a rep, you cold call someone, they say, you know what, I appreciate your cold call, but I'm just not interested, or I'm too busy, or whatever. Like it dies. And any
Yeah.
tips on like following up, or like should they maybe follow up on LinkedIn later, saying, hey, man, I know you weren't interested, but I really appreciate that you took my call. I would love to stay in touch, and maybe open that up later down the road. Like, is that a good approach, or do you have any follow up tips on that?
Right. And I separate the I'm not interested in two types of I'm not interested, right? Or maybe there's like three types, but context is very important to what you're doing. So if I'm like, hey man, do you have 2 minutes? They're like, no, I'm not interested. They didn't even know what I was calling about. So like, how can you not be interested if, like, what if you won the lottery, right? Like, of course I'm not gonna tell you you did, but you didn't even hear me out. So I would just call him back 2 days later. Or I'd go ahead and send him an email that says, we just got off the phone, and I'll say, hey, Scott, seems like I caught you at a really bad time today. Here's what I wanted to talk about. And it's just a sentence or two, and that's it, right? So, however, if I'm like, hey, man, I'm with Alti Sales, and we help companies build sales development teams and like outperform everybody else, and we're all about sales development excellence. And they're like, oh yeah, man, Tito, I read some of your articles. It's cool stuff. The way we're running our team, we would never have someone help us out. I know you do consulting. I couldn't even bring you in to train our team. So I'm not interested, man. I'd be like, totally perfect. I won't bug you anymore. Cheers, bye. Hang up the phone, and I take him off my list, right? Because why? Like he knows what I'm doing. He knows my value prop. He knows what the company's about. I don't need to reemphasize it. I don't need to be annoying with them. But yeah,
Tito, we
Yeah,
have a
I think that's
question on the funnel. Scott, go ahead before we get to the question. Go for it.
yeah, I think it goes back to what we are talking about like cannibalizing your list. I think that's so important. Many times I will get cold calls in a similar scenario to Tito. I'll be like, listen, man, like it sounds like a cool product. It makes sense. I see the value, but because of X, Y, Z, it doesn't make sense for our business right now. And then, I'll get follow-up emails as if that conversation, never happened. and then I don't feel heard. It's frustrating, and especially when you're courteous and you tell them what's going on in your business, and you're not just, hey, not interested. It's frustrating. So I think removing them from your list is very, very important for sure.
Yeah. And how about just straight up asking, like, may I follow up with you in the future? Like, I feel like a lot of reps just don't ask that. They just assume that because I said, yeah, we're not interested, that they take that as, well, maybe he's just not interested right now. Like, what's your
Right.
thoughts on that?
Oh, always. I always I never permanently remove people from my list unless they explicitly ask for it. And now with GDPR in Europe, you kind of have to do that. However, what we're very conscious about is priorities change every 6 months, right? And people change jobs. So like somebody saying I'm not interested doesn't mean that that account should never be targeted. It's just bad timing. You call them at a bad time. They're working on revamping their Salesforce right now. They don't have time to build their SDR team, or they're like working on some other projects. But hey, maybe 3, 6 months down the road, it will be a better fit. Just don't call them every 2 months, right? They'll remember you and they'll be annoyed. But if you give them 6 months, you're good to go, right? So I think that's the way to manage it. I'll jump to the takeaways because it seems like the audience is asking interesting questions. And I don't know if we want to try to get through the PowerPoint. We're in slide 10. There's only 18, and then answer a lot of questions. Or is that the best strategy, Gaetano and Scott?
Yeah, I think that'll work. Before we get to this takeaway, there is one question that was very relevant to that last slide that I want to get to just before we dive into the takeaway. It's the question was from Kaylin, and the question is regarding the funnel. Like, what were your best practices on how you set the stages of that funnel that you mentioned in the last slide?
Yep. So that's a little bit of the expertise that you get when you have. My teams have made over 1 million cold calls. Like I've counted the number of dials per day multiplied by the number of days, like literally over 1 million, and we got enough data. And it depends also on your prospects and your buyer persona. What is their preferred method of communication, and of interaction? So like when I was talking about the engineer and what would happen if I'm like, come on, I'm a sales rep, give me 2 minutes. I'll give you an insight here on how you can call engineers, right? So pick up the phone. They're like, hello, this is John. And you're like, hey, John, I'm Tito. I am with Alti Sales. And I was really hoping you could just help me out today. I have a couple of questions about how you're running your team. I did some research. Seems like you have 18 network engineers. Do you have 2 minutes to spare with me? Right? And if they're like, no, I'm super busy, I say, that's completely fine. I'll go ahead and send you an email instead. Again, I'm Tito. I'm with Alti Sales. I would really appreciate if you give that a look when you have a chance. Bye. And I actually hang up the phone on them. I don't even wait for anything else to happen because these engineers tend to be more introverted. When they tell you no, they don't want to hear a pushy sales rep. They want to hear somebody who's like, okay, thanks for coming. Like kind of when you're walking out of the store, nobody goes and grabs you by the arm and brings you back. They're like, thanks for coming, bye. So that's my thanks for coming. And then they get an email saying, here's all the things I know about your company. You have this many engineers. These are some projects you're working on. This is some of your tech stack. And we wanted to talk to you because we can improve this part of your business. Here's a link to our website. And then they'll click on that, go to your website, analyze it, and then perhaps even come through inbound, right? And if you have good rules of engagement, that still gets credited to you. But you need to adapt to the buyer persona. The call funnel also, of course, and a lot of context there, but the call funnel will vary according who you're talking to, and there's like decision trees. It's not easy to just come up with one and put it together. But if you really scroll through a lot of my LinkedIn articles that I put out there, you might find some tips and tricks here. And if not, just ping me via LinkedIn, and we can find a way that I can help your team with that.
Awesome, great. So the takeaway here, you got to be scientific with your sales development process. Any final takeaways and tips on how to actually get more scientific?
Yeah, of course. Like some of the classes I took, and I went to Duke University. My major was in human psychology and behavioral economics, worked under Dan Ariely. But some of my most useful courses were like research methods in psychological sciences, helping me understand the statistical significance of running multivariable tests, right? And what that means in short is, understanding and even some basic probabilistic things are already very important, right? So some people, if I tell you roll the die once, grab 6 dice and roll them all at the same time, you're not always going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Of course, you're going to get a huge mix, right? But what happens is a lot of times people are like, they try something just 6 times, is the equivalent of rolling the dice, and they get 3 1s, a 4, and a 2, and a 3. And they're like, this approach sucks, right? The performance is so low. And you don't yet have statistical significance, right? If you were to roll 6 million dice, it's more likely that you'll get really close to about 1 million times on each face of the die. And therefore, what you got to understand very well is, at what point do you stop testing and declare a winner? And way too many people are doing it way too quickly and not gathering enough data. So there's courses on Coursera. They're actually mandatory for some of our managers to go take both quantitative and qualitative methods of research. And as technical as this sounds, it's going to help you a ton in business. So I know you hated those courses probably in college, but you should go back and take them. They're going to be helpful.
Awesome, man. That's a great tip. And just from my SEO analytical stuff, there were times where we would have to do content auditing of like our sales enablement content, and there would be thousands of articles and white papers to evaluate. But we knew we wouldn't be able to do every single one of those manually, so we would pull up a statistical significance calculator and figure out, like, if we had 1,000 articles, how many would we have to manually review to get that statistical significance. So for VPs of sales on the webinar, you might be able to use one of these to figure out if you want to do an experiment with like 1,000 cold calls, or if you want to get real crazy and do 1,000,000 of them, how many would you have to look at to get that statistical significance to have a clear result? Scott, any final takeaways before we move on to the next point?
No, I absolutely love it. I think those are great points. And my question actually would be, when is too much? Like you said, like how do you declare a winner? Because there is this, death by, analysis paralysis as well. So that's the other side of the coin.
And that's what these classes are going to teach you. And let me give you a quick example that's going to, paint a better picture here. But imagine I send 1,000 emails with template A and 1,000 emails with template B. And with template A, I get 7 meetings, and with template B, I get 8. Do you think we're ready to declare a winner? Not yet, right? Because even though it was 1,000, it might have been that one guy was just really excited about it and he happened to have template B. But if he had template A, he would have also booked the meeting, and therefore the other one would have been a winner. So I'll tell you that's not statistically significant. However, if you send 100 emails and one gets 2 positive responses, demos booked, and the other one gets 17, well, even with 100, you can already have statistical significance because the variability of results is so gigantic, right? And that's what quantitative and qualitative methods are going to help you understand, is at what point is the delta of performance between a multivariable test give you the ability to understand that one is now declared the winner, and now you can grab that template and try to tweak it or improve it or change it completely and try to get results. And I would still recommend always measuring not only how many demos are you booking, but also how many negative responses are you getting, so you don't burn your list.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks, Tito, and thanks, Scott. Let's keep it moving. Let's move on to the next point.
Cool. And then, well, a very common question I get is like, how do you know what to train your reps on, right? And how do you run training? So the great thing about also building a call funnel is that you can now batch your reps into groups. You can say, okay, so 3 people are having a lot of problems with the very early stages of the call. And then these other 2 people are in the middle stages, and these other 2 people are in the end stages. So you can just group train them into the things that they need to get better at. And then you also know who's really good at some other things, and you can share their calls. And it's not always going to work perfectly because there's different styles, and then there's different tones, and then there's different personalities, right? So, and it's not only about what you say, but also about how you say it, right? Saying like, hey, this is Tito with Alti Sales, hoping to speak with you briefly, is very different from saying, hey, this is Tito from Alti Sales, hoping to speak with you briefly. Like, very different dynamics. So it's not only the wording, it's also the tonality, the pace, the energy. So I always, in some of the cold calling trainings that I have on LinkedIn, I talk about balancing your energy with them and just being slightly more excited than your prospect. Somebody's like, hello? You don't want to be like, hey man, what's up? This is Grant Cardone. Like, they're gonna get annoyed. Um, if they
Tito,
become super excited.
quick,
Yeah.
quick question. If you had to pick one, tonality versus the actual words that the rep is saying, what do you think is more important?
Well, the thing is that the importance of them is not linear. It's very exponential, right? So if you do either of those really bad, you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot really quickly. But as long as one is good, if you already have both quite good, I would optimize for wording. But if you don't have both good yet, I'd optimize for tonality, right? You got to work on your weakest link, to put it that way. It's like you multiply, it's like rate them on a scale from 1 to 100, and how good your call is a multiplication of your tonality score times your kind of like wording score. So like if your wording is 95 but your tonality is a 3 out of 100, dude, you're running at like 285 and then you're dead, right? You need to score over whatever 1,000. You can create a little math formula if you're a geek like me. But yeah, work on your weakest link. If you feel like your tone is bad and you're not connecting at the same energy level, you got to work on that.
Yeah.
And another thing I can talk about there briefly is for one of our clients, they sell artificial intelligence for like customer support. And we would call customer support departments and say, hey, you have 2 minutes. They're like, yeah, sure, go ahead. We're like, okay, great, we'll keep it brief. What we do is artificial intelligence for customer support. And we had a lot of people cut us off right there, be like, no, man, that's not something I'm interested in. Thanks, bye. Oof, hang up the phone. And it was just way too many calls getting stuck in that step of the call during our funnel. But at the same time, not only were they getting stuck there in that step, they're getting stuck in the same phrase, which was artificial intelligence for customer support. And what we theorized there was that too many people were afraid that artificial intelligence was going to take their customer support jobs, and therefore they didn't want to talk. So we changed the pitch to be more like, hey, we have technology that enables customer support reps to be more effective by surfacing the right information at the right time for them so they can be more prepared for the calls. And they're like, oh my God, I love this. Tell me more, right? So training on the steps of the call will also help you understand both the tonality and the wording that you're using at different parts of your call scripts or your call flows. And that will also sometimes help marketing change the phrasing. Maybe you want to stop pitching AI for customer support and you want to start pitching, technology that enables reps to be more effective or whatever.
Right. We have a few questions to get to on this topic, but Scott, any gut reactions to this before we get into the question?
No, just kind of building off of that is if there's any marketers out there listening, make sure that you are gathering the data of your frontline BDRs who are, surfacing insights like Tito said, that, the market doesn't like the word artificial intelligence in this case, and make sure that that is all being collected as well and repurposed in your messaging for marketers out there. Too many times there's not enough alignment there, because in my opinion, your frontline BDRs are the greatest source of market value and takeaways that you can get.
100%. I gotta just throw my product marketing hat on real quick and share how we did this at Pipedrive when I was running content marketing and SEO there. I always felt that headlines on a homepage really should reflect, like what you just said, Scott, the issues that are being discovered from the frontline reps. And I connected with the SDR team, and I actually requested, I sat in the SDR island. So there was like a section of the office where all the SDRs were sitting. And I was the only marketer crazy enough to be to request to sit next to them, because I wanted to hear what was going on over and over again. And that fueled my ideas and strategy for content. But one of the key findings was that, and Pipedrive being a sales CRM, was that salespeople, especially in SMB companies, were struggling with keeping organized, keeping their deals organized and staying on track. So we just simply updated the homepage headline to Pipedrive helps keep your sales process organized. And we saw a significant uptick in engagement and click through and ultimately leads from the homepage just by by doing that. Whereas before it was something a bit more obscure. It was like advertising. You know, like sometimes marketers, they like to get a little advertising and try to come up with something sexy and buzzy. But like you said, Scott, it's always best to get it right from the horse's mouth and go with that. So yeah, I want to get to a question for you guys. This is an interesting one. It's from Bruce, and it says regarding no-shows. So SDR does everything he or she is supposed to be doing. Does a great cold call, books a meeting, it all goes well, great. Next follow up, the prospect never shows up or cancels. How do you follow up? How long do you keep after them? And what's the best practice there?
Yeah, so like, I mean, this could be a whole webinar about how to optimize it, right? Depending, like the best way to minimize no-shows is to book the meetings for as soon as possible. If you book meetings 2-3 months out, they're never gonna show up. They're just agreeing because you're being too pushy, right? I would listen to the call recording and understand how would I feel if I were in the prospect shoes, and if it was actually a good quality conversation and they discussed one or two things that the company is doing and how your solution can help him, and then they no-showed, I'd actually insist a lot because they had already pre-agreed. And if you have the recording or you have the email template that worked, you can rephrase that and say, hey, John, when we spoke a couple of weeks ago or a couple of days ago, you mentioned it was very important for you, or you seemed intrigued by X, Y, and Z. Seems like seems like we can make it this way. I want to be very respectful of your time. Can we just hop on a 10-minute call with my account executive and discuss some things? And if by minute number 10 we don't have your interest, we'll let you go. So just be able to allow to take a little bit more from you, right? Because if you're sending hour-long calendar invites, they're gonna ruin your show rate. People are like, oh, a whole hour to talk to these sales guys? Nah. So try to keep your invites a little bit shorter. Listen to the call, figure out if it was actually a good meeting that was booked, or if it was like, oh yeah, call me next week, yeah, sure, whatever, 3 p.m. And then you send a calendar invite, they're not gonna show up to that.
Right. Scott, any takeaways from that? Any reaction?
I used to love just one tip used to do all the time would be getting my reps to send a quick video like the day before. I feel like when people are super, and it just can be 20 seconds, when people are super busy, they don't like unknowns, right? So if you've got a crazy calendar and there's this 15-minute block of, okay, I've got to talk to Scott. Who is Scott? I don't know him. I don't know his energy. What's going on? But if you send that little video, they understand your energy, they get you, they know you, you're human to them. It increased it decreased our number of no-shows pretty dramatically when we did that, because they're invested at that point. If they watch a video, they're showing up.
Yeah, and I'll
Great
build
tip.
on that, Scott. The best way to set up that video, if you're really smart about it, is grab something like Vidyard, go on the prospect's LinkedIn page, and start do a little bit of research, or have your account executive do some research, right? And start the video there and say, hey, John, I'm looking at your LinkedIn. I looked at your website. We're prepping up for this meeting and just making sure that we are on point with all the information we need to know. Is there anything else we need to know before our call tomorrow? We're looking forward to speaking with you at 11 a.m. Have a good day. Bye. Right? And then you can send that video and say, and even in your email craft, like, here are the 3 things I know about you. Here's how we think this might be relevant. We'll ask you a few more questions. If you want to give us context in advance, let us know. Talk soon, Scott, right? And then
That's
that's just the
awesome.
most powerful way to make sure you minimize
Yeah.
no-shows.
Totally.
No one has ever done that to me. And if they did, I would probably give them at least a chance. But anyway, we have some more questions, and I want to get to one more question here before we move on. But Tito, regarding your training, this is from John Martin. What's the manager to rep ratio that is desired or optimal to achieve that cadence that you want to get to?
Yeah, we run on a model that internally at Alti Sales, we don't let SDR managers have more than 9 reps. As we hire number 10, we split 5-5, essentially, is the idea. I recommend that. Now, I've seen companies where literally the manager to rep ratio is 15 or 20, just because we do weekly trainings with every rep and weekly one-on-ones. We spend 2 hours with every rep, kind of like training and enabling them. If you have 10, that's already 20 hours of your week. You have no time to get anything else done, essentially. So we want to keep it to 5 to 8 reps, 10 to 16 hours just between one-on-ones and training. That's personal, where we're listening to the recording, where we're giving feedback, we're doing mock calls and things like that. Yeah, so
That's
that's your
great. Yeah.
range, 5 to 9,
Yeah,
I
that's a
would
good.
say.
That's good. Yeah, I like that. Cool. Guys, there's so many more questions for the audience. We're getting close to the end. We got some more slides to get through, but stick around. We're gonna get to all your Q&A at the very end. But in the meantime, Tito, let's plow through, man. Let's get to the next slide.
Yeah. So just like I was saying, there's few things that are as important as training your team well, and the sales development profession is pretty new. There's not a lot of people who have a lot of experience. Sometimes your manager was really good at emailing or at direct mail or at LinkedIn prospecting or at social, and then now you need an edge. So it's good to try to figure out how can you train on that, read up on it, try to share ideas with colleagues. Like one of the things I do is I interview best in class sales development reps, um, because I want to see what they're saying. And if you look at the interviews I've done, like Louise Trump was incredible at email, and then Sam Silverman was the best performing rep at outreach, and he has this interesting like dynamics. And then like Jackie Livnicki was great on the phone, and so was Ali Hudson. But then Mikey Powell is very good with direct mail. So I'm literally just finding colleagues where I can add value to their lives and essentially asking them to give me free training regarding what they're doing so well, right? And I don't say that. I'm like, I'm gonna interview, I'm gonna put it on LinkedIn, and I have an audience, so I have a little bit of an edge here. But think, even if it's just your community, if you're in Atlanta, like go to other companies in Atlanta, figure out who's the best SDR, and say, hey, why don't we share ideas and processes and try them out, run statistically significant tests, and see if they work out. Because as I said at the beginning too, maybe he's calling VPs of sales and you're calling VPs of engineering, and his methodology is definitely not going to work out. It's going to flop. So you got to be thinking about it, trying to train yourself, and yeah, and then follow. Like a lot of people like my content. Hopefully, you guys do too. Go explore some of the stuff I write about, and ping me if you have short questions. I'll be able to give you a hand here and there.
Awesome, man. One more question before we move on. This is from Tatiana Chua. She wants to know, is there any difference between inbound and outbound SDRs here? So specifically, I think she wants to know about inbound SDR teams that don't do any cold calling.
Yes. So I separate the world of sales development into 3 buckets: inbound, warm outbound, and outbound. And I see that most people draw the line for inbound and outbound somewhere within my warm outbound range. What's happening here is, for me, inbound is very little actually. There's only um, instances where somebody's requesting pricing, or has filled up a form for a demo request, or is like chatting on chat with a company. It's inbound. I classify as things where the response required is immediate or is as soon as possible. A trade show scan, a white paper download, a conference attendee, a webinar attendee, those are not inbound. Those are warm outbound. And the motions you're going to follow there are going to be pretty similar to the outbound and not to the inbound. The inbound reps, like somebody requests a demo. You call them up and you're like, hey, John, I saw you request that demo on our site. So do you have a few minutes to speak? And they're like, yeah. You're like, hey, cool thing. Here's what I did. I went to your website. I know you guys do X. I went to your LinkedIn profile. I see you lead X team. I want to make sure there's a good fit for you, and so that we can give you a full demo of the platform. Tell me more about XYZ, right? And don't ask any questions that you can find online. Don't be like, so how big is the company? Or like, where are you based? Where are you located? Don't ask questions like that. But if you're like, well, have you already invested in a marketing automation tool? Are your sales development reps already using some data source, or whatever, something that you can't figure out, like they're using Zoom Info or Discover.org? You can't know that. It's very hard to figure it out. Easier to ask, right? Everything else should be treated as outbound, and that means you call them up, you ask for a little bit of time, and you can say, hey, you might be familiar with Alti Sales from the Sales Hacker webinar because I saw you attended, but I was just really hoping to speak with you for 2 minutes today, and I promise I'll keep it brief. Would that be okay? Right? So that's outbound. And that's warm outbound. So if you separate those in your head, there are very important differences in how you handle them. For inbound, you do a ton of research before you call, and for outbound, you probably do not. You can just segment your lists appropriately, and if you're calling through the right ICP, you'll be successful.
Right, and I love that, Tito, because now you have this whole notion of, I'm sure you guys heard this too, Scott. You've definitely heard this, the product qualified lead. So just because I come to your website and I download a white paper or an ebook, it doesn't necessarily mean I want to talk to a rep. And I think, Tito, your classification of that warm middle ground there is really nice to share with the audience. Scott, any other gut reactions there before we move on?
I've seen and been a living example of that. My past role at Media Valet, we had a small inbound team and a larger outbound team. And initially, we had the inbound team going after demo requests, ebooks, white paper downloads, trade show leads, and everything. And I actually made the decision to switch those and just keep them on demo requests and give everything else, the ebooks and everything, to the outbound team. And we saw it was above 60% more meetings booked by switching it, because the tools that the outbound team had, the more hunter mentality, mapping out the whole organization, everything, were much better suited to get that meeting booked from an ebook. Sometimes it was much longer, whereas the inbound rep was like so used to like one call, okay, meeting, that they wouldn't follow up as needed. Whereas if you give it to an outbound rep who's like, oh my God, I cold call people all day, and you're telling me this person actually downloaded an ebook, they're going to follow up 847 times until they get the job done, because it's a trigger. So,
right. And not only that, but the strategies are so different, right? So inbound, I consider people who kind of want to get into customer support, customer success, or marketing, people who hate rejection, people who are super helpful, and they're like, hey, went on your website, found all these things out, how can I help you? Why do you want to look at a demo? What are your internal initiatives? While outbound is like hunter. So if you grab an inbound rep and you put them on scans or whatever, or like imagine I had an inbound mentality to everybody who attends this webinar, and I'm like, hey, you came to my webinar, how can I help you? Like, when do you want to start using Alti Sales as your SDR team amplifier? You'll be like, dude, I went because I thought I could learn something from you, but I don't want to use your product. So I need hunter mentality. I need to classify and figure out who's the right fit, and then go after them with a much more targeted message.
Yeah, and to that point, this is why I think all marketers should learn how to sell, because that problem that you just said is really actually a reflection of marketers who don't understand the sales process and how it works. In my view.
And all salespeople should learn how to be marketers, vice versa.
Exactly.
The lines are blurring. But as a takeaway, if you are out there and you're listening, you're running a business development team, what you could do literally right now would be, if you have an inbound and outbound team, and your inbound is going after ebooks, switch that for a month and see what happens. It will be, and give those to your outbound team to go after. I think you'll see a dramatic increase. I know I have before, a few times.
Yeah.
I wrote an article on LinkedIn. I think it's one of the latest ones I wrote, and it's called Eliminating Hybrids, and why inbound should only work on demo requests and anything that's immediate, like the chat functionality. You don't want to distract your outbound rep because he got an email from inbound and now he has to go do research and stop the emotions of doing hunter mentality, and now try to be an assistant and helpful. The only rare occasion in which I am okay keeping hybrids, where the whole team does outbound and inbound, is when inbound is very, very minimal and is highly automated, meaning an inbound request comes in, flows into Salesforce, gets immediately recognized as a target account, enriched, gets pushed to outreach, an automatic sequence triggers, throws an email to the prospect, and then it creates a call for the SDR, so he just needs to call and set up the meeting. In that case, I'm okay. Otherwise, it creates too much work disruption. And I think you should always have an inbound team, an outbound team, if you don't have operational excellence for your sales development operations.
Love it.
Tito,
Love it,
sorry,
guys.
would
All right,
you have
yeah, go ahead.
an inbound, a warm outbound, and then an outbound team then?
No, I would do both warm outbound and outbound to the same team.
Cool. Just want to clarify.
Yeah,
Okay.
otherwise you're splitting it too much, splitting hairs. But I like clarifying to people. They're like, oh yeah, no, this is marketing sourced. It's not a marketing source. This marketing influence, perhaps. But let's just call it a teamwork. It was marketing got us the person to the website, and then sales development called and booked a meeting. 50-50 split in how well they did to book that meeting, right? If it's a demo request, it's like 95% marketing, 5% sales development, just calling and securing the time. And if it's cold outbound, like they've never been to your website, you're booking a meeting, then boom, that's incredible. That's like almost 100% SDR sourced. And a lot of companies are starting to shift resources from marketing and account-based marketing. They're selecting the accounts they're going to go after. They start sending things to those accounts and collaborate with sales development to also go work those accounts, and it works better, right? You can leverage more accounts by warming up a little bit of the outbound deals that are cold, by throwing display ads and by throwing ebooks out there and by whatever, sending some emails and newsletters and just making yourself aware, inviting them for some events that you're doing, and just do some markety stuff to your accounts.
Awesome. All right, Tito, how many slides we got left?
We got 6, so there's a ton still to cover, and I know we're running out of time, and I think we need to do 2.0 for this thing.
Yeah, man. I mean, let's plow through the slides and get to Q&A. Let's try to plow through the slides in the next like 5-10 minutes and then open it up, because we got so many questions, and I don't want to leave anybody hanging. So let's plow through them if we can.
Yeah,
I'm downtoning up for a little bit. I'm gonna reschedule my 12 o'clock. It's too fun with you.
Thanks, appreciate it. And let me check also my agenda really quickly, make sure that I don't have anything urgent at noon. No, I'm good until 12:15, so we have 10 minutes.
Okay, let's go.
There's no best script. We already talked about this. I'm not going to go deeper here. You can read the slides. You can read more about psychology and psychographic profiles of your buyer personas and understand what's up. So, and you also need to decipher how they like to communicate, and then the rest is going to be easy, right? So, examples of engineering and sales, I've already given those. We can go deep into simple techniques for better cold calls. So never ask, is this a good time, or hey, is this a bad time? I hate both of those approaches because it's too easy to say no. And if they say it's not a good time, you're almost obligated to say, okay, I'll call you another time. But if you ask something like, do you have 2 minutes? If they say no, I don't have 2 minutes, you can say, I promise I'll keep it brief. I'll just take 2 minutes. There's some slight psychological nuances, right? And the other thing to talk about there is if you're asking for a short time, you can reverse jujitsu that into booking the meeting very quickly, right? Like, I promise I'll keep it to 30 seconds. And they're like, okay, what'd you do? And you're like, I don't know, we're conversation intelligence for sales teams, allowing them to understand the insights of what the reps are saying on the phone so that you can better train and enable your team and understand why reps are performing better than others. I promise I would keep it to 45 seconds, but what I want to do is I want to show you how the platform works, because we've been able to increase conversion rates at XYZ company by 42%. They're in the same industry as you are. And I know you have 7 reps that are definitely not yet using any conversation intelligence. Be super helpful. Would you give me 15 minutes next week to just take a quick look? And now you're literally pitching and closing almost all at once, because they said, I'm busy, I only have 2 minutes. And if your value proposition is short and concise and to the point, you're able to book many more meetings by asking for 2 minutes rather than trying to interrupt someone's day through a cold call and try to keep them 10 minutes on the phone. So some people are just measuring the effectiveness of cold calling by how long you stay on the phone. I hate that. My best demos are the demos that get booked in 45 seconds to 2 minutes, and it's like, hey, boom, I'll keep it to 2 minutes, go, pitch, close, yes, and then they're showing up because we're friendly also with our follow-up. Tonality matters, right? So service titan selling to like very blue collar workers, people who are like electricians and people like that. So when they talk on the phone, they're like, yo, John, this is Mike. I'm with Service Titan. I was really hoping to speak with you briefly. You got a second? You got a sec, right? Super, super casual, super broy, super friendly. That's how they communicate, right? You don't call the head of engineering or the CIO at Microsoft. You're like, hey, you got a sec, right? You're gonna get shut down. They're gonna be like, what the hell? So think about how your prospect dresses, how he behaves, how he communicates, and try to embed yourself into that same type of persona and communicate with them at their level. And then that's gonna be super helpful. Um, Ideas for closing parts of the call, right? So at the end of the call, when you're like, do you have 15 minutes? The best way to do it is what I call specific plus open alternative, which means you can go and say, are you open maybe on at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, or would you rather do some other time on Wednesday? So it's not a yes or no question for do you have 15 minutes on Tuesday? It's a do you want Tuesday at 10 a.m. or sometime on Wednesday? And what happens is like their mental model looks at Tuesday on their calendar. They're like, Tuesday 10 a.m. I can't do it. And then what he say? Okay, some other time on Wednesday. What do I have open on Wednesday? Okay, I have 2 p.m. And then they're like, okay, yeah, I can do 2 p.m. on Wednesday. And then it's like it increases your conversion rates for phone pitching a lot. Tone and energy matter. Test this test. Without a system, you won't be successful. So build your call funnel, and yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all we have. Last slide we have is like, uh, key takeaways that they could just you can download the slides or rewatch the webinar, stop here or get those. So we can get off to Q&A.
Awesome. Yeah, let's get into Q&A. So this is not really a question, it's just a statement here from Jeffrey, and I kind of do agree with this. It says that humor sometimes can work, and he said that, Tatiana, you're welcome. Jeffrey said sometimes he uses the line of, hey, do you have 27 seconds? And like they kind of laugh like, yeah, I got 27 seconds. So I think
Oh,
that can work depending on your persona, like you said, Tito. But let's get into the question. So this is from David, and I think this is a really good one. It goes back to the point of team structure. So there's this concept now of pods, and when I was moderating our session at the Revenue Summit on revenue operations, we were talking with Salesforce, and they do this thing now where they have like an AE connected with like a team of smaller little mini army of SDRs, and then there's like a marketer too, and they kind of group them into these little pods.
yeah.
Tito, have you seen this as a successful thing? And it sounds like it might be more of an enterprise thing, but have you seen this be successful?
I don't like it, and I know some other great leaders are advocates of this. So I don't think
Yeah.
this is the right way to do it or this is the wrong way to do it. The reason I hate it is because I am way, way, way too math and metrics driven. And what happens is if one of my and I have a whole article on this. It's called sales pods, great in theory, not so in practice. But the problem with sales pod is that if your AE is having a really bad quarter, and you go to the AE, you're like, dude, what's happening this quarter? It's like, well, the SDR that I have is just sending me really bad deals. And they're like, oh, damn, yeah, you have a new SDR or an SDR that is not really sending the best deals. Let me go look at him. And then you talk to him, you're like, dude, like, what's happening? Like, he's like, no, I'm booking great demos, but the AE is just not closing. And since you have that like linear relationship, you can never figure out what part of that funnel is destroyed, right? It's kind of like the same concept of the cold call and building a funnel. You need to have steps in which you can evaluate across multiple touch points. So if you have one SDR booking meetings for 5 AEs and one AE has a really bad quarter, it's obviously not the SDR fault because he's sending the meetings to 5 different AEs and the other 4 AEs are doing fine, right? And if you have 5 SDRs sending meetings to this one AE, and then one of the SDRs is not hitting, or like like it's whatever, like things are not working out, you can kind of like go back to, okay, who sourced what meetings and what was the result of those? Oh, it seems like this one SDR is sourcing really bad meetings because none of those are moving to sales qualified opportunities. No, none of those are moving down the funnel. And then you can go into the SDR's workflow and figure out what they're doing wrong. So I don't like sales pods for that reason. There are certain cases where if you're selling multi-million government deals to to the government and you're a gigantic company, the SDRs aren't just setting meetings, they need to evaluate financial statements and do a lot of like legwork, and they're almost like executive assistants for AEs, then yeah, you don't want to have 20 meetings with 20 different SDRs for each of your target accounts. They should go read that article. Otherwise, I can blab about this for like 10 minutes. We should get to other questions as well.
Awesome. Scott, did you have anything to add there?
No, I just, yeah, other than ditto. It's much easier to diagnose a problem when you have more data and people to pull from.
Yeah,
Not just
agreed.
a one-to-one.
Cool. So we got one more. We'll try to get to two more. We'll try to get two more in because we got about 5 minutes left. This is from Jay Jantz. What's up, Jay? Been seeing your content on LinkedIn. Great stuff, man. But his question is, we are revisiting our SDR comp right now. So this is a big topic. We could probably do a whole other webinar on this too, Tito, like you said. But do you think SDR variable comp should be set on a specific action or set of actions? So for example, like a sales accepted opportunity or something like that, or should there also be a spiff on contract value? What's your thoughts on SDR comp in the context of outbound?
Yeah, I have it very clear. And the first thing you need to fix is your SDR to AE handoff. So I wrote an article for Sales Hacker that if you just Google SDR to AE handoff, it'll pop up as the first result. If you have a clear SLA where when a meeting is booked, if it gets performed, it must meet the ideal customer profile because you've selected the accounts and you've done it right. I would pay SDRs primarily on the meeting being performed, and then secondarily on the deal size when it closes. Not
Okay,
on
so let me pause you for 1 second, Tito. Is that meeting booked, or is that meeting booked and done?
done, performed is what they
Okay.
what I call them. So the
Gotcha.
meeting has
Okay.
actually been held with the account executive, right? And then if they get their meetings held for the month, and this varies. As I was talking, there's different companies. Like some companies, they require 4 qualified meetings per month, and I've seen companies that require 60. Right? If you're SMB, if you're transactional, it can vary tremendously. But if they get to the number of meetings that they require for the month, they should be like at a very good stable salary. If you're in the Bay Area, I think they should be between 80 and 90K per year, just by getting their meetings performed that they require. And then you should kick off about 1% of revenue if they're outbound. I compensate inbound, and by my definition of inbound is just, again, the ones that are immediate response, but I compensate outbound on a small portion of revenue, because if you have a vast number of accounts, usually the smaller accounts are slightly easier to get into. And if you compensate the reps a little bit on the closing of the account for a high contract value, they'll put extra effort to go after the big fish, and that can help your team a lot and really help the company, right? I'd rather close 100K deal than 4 25K deals as an AE. It's just so much more work. So if you incentivize your SDRs to go look for those 100K deals, then that is really cool for them. And again, 100K, give them 1%, give them $1,000 for closing 100K. At the end of the year, if your SDRs are closing $1 million plus worth of deals, that is insanely good. Most small startups are looking at about sourcing 200 to maybe 500K at the beginning. At 500K, you have a sustainable program. So yeah, there you have it.
Yeah, I love that.
There's a last thing is there's an article we wrote also for Sales Hacker called How to Set Your SDR Quota. So you can go look at what quota you need to set, and that'll be helpful.
Awesome. Scott, did you have any reactions on that?
No, man. Me and Tito speak the same language. I've probably read too many of his articles through the last little while. We implemented that exact same thing at our last role. So very effective outbound. You got 1%, because you have to encourage the activity. Like me as if I'm a BDR, why do I go and try and break into Sony when I can get the mom and pop shop down the road? It's going to be much easier to map out, find the decision makers, get in front of them. So you have to reward that whale hunting somehow, and I think it's a great way to do it.
Awesome. Tito, do you have time for one more question? We got a bunch left, but we can only probably get one more in. Is one more okay for you?
Yeah, let's do one or two more. I gotta leave in like 12:15 is my next meeting. It's an internal meeting, so I can be a couple of minutes late. And for the audience, if you have more questions, just ping me on LinkedIn. even better if you actually write a post that says, great webinar with Sales Hacker and Tito Bort. Question for both of you guys, blah, blah, blah. I'll put some effort this weekend to go respond.
Awesome. Yeah, we definitely appreciate that. If you guys could share the webinar link, tag us, and just share with your audience and your network how much fun and how great this was for you. But last question here before we close out. It's from my man, Chris Morris. What's up, Chris? The question is, thinking about the total number of calls in an outbound sequence, and I know this probably varies, Tito and Scott too, depending on your average deal cycle and all that fun stuff. But over a period of time, how many calls should go in an outbound sequence? How far out should they be spaced? Should there be voicemails left? No voicemails? What's an ideal cadence there?
So, and that's a very funny question. I'm publicly a big advocate of outreach, and this is one of the things that you can do very well with outreach, and you cannot do with SalesLoft. And that's one of the differentiators for why I love outreach so much. So, if you are trying to figure that out, ping me, and I'll show you how to do it. But what I do is I inspect my sequences for conversion rates across different steps because we have a call funnel. Like I was just doing this for one of our accounts actually yesterday, and we saw that we have 3 calls within 2 weeks for this account, and we had 6 demos booked out of 1,000 calls on step 1, only 2 demos booked out of like 700 calls on that second call, and we had 5 demos booked out of 450 calls on step 3. So we were not seeing heavily diminishing returns from those calls. We were still booking actually our best step is step number 3. The third call is the most effective. It's 5 out of 400. It's more than 1%, while the first one is 6, but out of like 900. So it's only 0.66%. So you need to go, again, be very data driven, go through your analytics and figure out what are you doing well here. Is it still working? Are there diminishing returns? How about your pickup rates? How about your flow rates through the funnel? And if you can do that well, you will 10x your performance.
I love that, man. That's the science of outbound right there. So yeah, with that said, we got to wrap it up. Thank you guys again for joining. Scott, why don't you tell the audience where they can find you and hit you up, and then Tito, why don't you do the same?
Yeah, best way if you want to connect, you have any questions, you want to pick my brain or anything, LinkedIn's the way to go. Scott Barker, you can follow me on Twitter, Scott B Sales as well. My Twitter game is terrible, but it's on my yearly goal to spend more time there. So those are the 2 channels that'll be good.
Awesome. Tito, tell the audience where they can find you, where they should follow you, and how they can hit you up.
Yeah, LinkedIn's the best way. Just find me on LinkedIn, click follow, or add me as a contact. If you're on this webinar, just go ahead and add me. Say I was on your webinar. I'm not trying to sell you anything. Hopefully you enjoy the content. I'll continue to put more stuff out there. And yeah, when you see something, just like, comment, share. And yeah, I'm happy to help always.
Awesome. Yeah, and if you guys want to hit me up, you can just hit me up on LinkedIn as well. Just follow me there, Gaetano Denardi. You could search me, or you could send me a quick email, gaetano@saleshacker.com. Of course, subscribe to us on YouTube for the recording of this webinar. Also, follow us on SlideShare, where you can get Tito's deck. And of course, please hit up Tito on LinkedIn if you have any follow-up questions that we didn't get to today. But yeah, that's about it. That's a wrap. We appreciate it, and we hope to see you next time. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We'll catch you next time. Signing out. Peace.